All right, good evening, everybody. Just turned 5 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get today's meeting under order. This is a meeting of the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners, regular meeting, May 20th, 2024, at 5 o'clock p.m. If everybody could please stand for the pledge of the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. At this time, we take a brief moment of silence for individual prayer, reflection, or meditation. We take this time to honor and remember our first responders and the men and women in our military who keep us safe and protect our freedoms at home and abroad. And also, if you could keep in your thoughts and prayers, the family of Alice Stewart. She's a CNN commentator, but she was a frequent visitor here to Flagler County, and her sister lives here locally. So a brief moment of silence. All right, thank you, everybody. Good to see you here. We'll move down the agenda. Items on today's agenda, there's one modification. We're going to pull for a future date, item 9A. It's got to go through AHAC and Planning Board, and then it'll come back to us. So we're going to defer that one. And a few announcements. County offices will be closed on Monday, May 27th for Memorial Day. We've got various vacancies on our boards. We ask that citizens volunteer for our boards and councils. They are available at flaglercounty.gov if you go to the Transparency Dashboard page. Select Citizens Advisory Boards, and you can see the information or apply there. Upcoming meetings. We have a commission meeting, joint meeting with the City of Palm Coast and Flagler County Sheriff's Office Tuesday, May 28th at 3 p.m. And our next regular meeting is Monday, June 3rd at 9 a.m. We will move down to our proclamations for this evening. Our first and only proclamation is for Historic Preservation Month. That's May 2024. It's requested by the Flagler County Historical Society, and Commissioner Pennington will read that proclamation.
This is a proclamation of the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners recognizing May 2024 as Historic Preservation Month in Flagler County. Whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for managing growth and sustainable development, revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability. And whereas historic preservation is relevant for all communities across the nation, both urban and rural, and for Americans of all ages, walks of life, and ethnic backgrounds. And whereas it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contributions made by dedicated individuals in helping to preserve the tangible aspects of heritage that has shaped us as people and a community. And whereas established in 1973 by the National Trust for Historic Preservation, events are planned to promote historic places for the purpose of instilling national and community pride, promoting heritage tourism, and showing the social and economic benefits of historic preservation. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners that we hereby proclaim May 2024 as Historic Preservation Month in Flagler County, and we urge the citizens to recognize the importance of historic preservation in Flagler County. This is adopted the 20th day of May 2024 and attested by Tom Bexley, the Clerk of Court, and our Chair, Andrew Dance. Ed, would you like to come up?
Would you like to motion for that?
Yes, I'll go ahead. Gentlemen, I'd like to motion to recognize May 2024 as Historic Preservation Month in Flagler County.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Pennington, second by Commissioner Hanson. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Come on up. We have a few members from the Historical Preservation Society.
My name's Ed Sharkovich. I'm the president of the Flagler County Historical Society. I want to thank each of you for coming on board with this, for recognizing the importance of history education. And I'd just like to read just a couple of sentences from a book called A History of Our Country, issued by the Marine Corps Institute in 1939. And this is written by David Seville Musi, who's the Governor Morris Professor of History at Columbia University. The past and the present. At the outset, I invite you to think of American history in quite a new way, not as a series of lessons with dates and names and events to be memorized and recited upon, but as a story of the past which will help you to understand the world in which you are now living. All of our stuff, our papers, our documents, our genealogical research, our artifacts, our properties, our lands that are historic here in Flagler County, we are absolutely dedicated to taking all of that and turning that into educational lessons for children and their families so that they not only understand the past that we've all come from, but so that they can use all of that to sharpen their focus and their vision on their present and on their future. And that's our goal at the County Historical Society. And we really appreciate all of your support, not only today, but also over the years. Thank you. Everybody's pointing
Come on
at one
up.
another. So I'm just going to ask each of the two ladies and James Fisk just to say a few words. We've got Claudia Dean Malo, who's the sister of our historian, Cisco Dean, past historian.
I want to thank everyone in the county for helping us provide the history of Flagler County and the town of Bunnell, which it was called years ago. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would also like to thank you. Ed mentioned the importance of educating our youth about the history of the area. I think that we have many, many, many people who have come to the area to live much later in their lives, who don't know about the history or understand the history. And I think it's really important for people who are planning for the future to know about that history.
I'd like to thank y'all for what y'all are doing to help with the history of Flagler County and help preserve it, especially my good friend over there, Al Hadid. He has really put in a lot of work to as far as the history is concerned, telling the stories. We have a perfect example coming up on May the 28th, the master site plan for Bing's Landing to help preserve Malacompra. I hope that we can really preserve a lot of the history that is there on that property. It is recorded on the National Register of Historic Places, and that should mean a lot. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
That was our last speaker, James Fisk, who I just want to put on record was around when they invented dirt. So he's been here for a while, and he's very proud of it. But I want to thank you again.
Well, come on up. Yeah, we'll take a picture.
Ready?
Thank you all.
Yeah, I know. Well, you did. You did. That's good. Good to see you, Mr. President. Right, great.
We appreciate the work of the society. We thank you all for what you do and the time you put into it. So thanks for being here tonight. Next up, we'll have a presentation on our emergency management department. Jonathan Lord, our emergency management director, will give us a presentation. Good evening, sir.
Evening, Chair and Commissioners. Jonathan Lord, Emergency Management Director. So this is my annual little update on our department, as well as obviously the start of the upcoming hurricane season. All right, so just a little quick year in review of what our little department has been up to. So this past year for us has been a very big year focused on benchmarking. I know a few months ago, I very excitedly announced to you all that we had actually gotten accredited through the International Emergency Management Accreditation Program. We are only one of, there were a few more counties in there, but they've dropped off. So we are one of only 7 counties in the state of Florida that actually meet this very rigorous accreditation. So we're super powerful of that, proud of that. And especially with our little team of only 5 of us, that, it's the fact that there are counties 3, 4, 5, 10 times our size that have given up on the accreditation program because, not necessarily because it was too much work, but maybe it wasn't worth it to them. But for us, it was super important to make sure that it wasn't just us saying, hey, we're doing the right thing for our community. We wanted to make sure there was another group looking at us independently saying, hey, you guys are missing things. There's areas you can improve upon. And that was really important to us because there were areas they highlighted for us to improve upon, and they gave us a window to improve upon in certain areas. And we did, and that's how we got accredited. So that really meant a lot to us. At the same time, because we're undergoing this accreditation benchmarking process, we also took a look at some of our peers, and we looked at a lot of our other peer agencies, similar sized counties, not that there's any county that's exactly the same as us, but similar counties, looking at the programs they offer as well as their staffing levels, and just kind of saw where we fit. So we kind of took that same opportunity to kind of take another look at ourselves. As I'm sure is no surprise, our size, our staff department size is a little smaller than most, including in our peer group. But again, we're a small but very mighty department. This year was also our every 4 to 5 year update of our comprehensive emergency management plan. So that's the main document. It's actually publicly posted on our website that guides how we deal with disasters in the county. And that every 5 years, 4.5 to 5 years, has to be reapproved by the state. It's in the process of getting the state approval. And in a future board meeting, we'll be bringing it to you all to adopt on behalf of the county, because then it becomes officially adopted, and that's the process we follow and the procedures that we follow. So you'll see it soon. I was hoping I could encourage the state to bring it into the same meeting, but I can't make the state approve stuff any faster than they do. So they have it. They told us it's good. They just haven't sent us the letter yet that we need to be able to bring it to you all. Another big thing we kind of briefly spoke about in some other meetings was something called the Florida Recovery Obligation Calculation. So this is something the state kicked off about 1.5 years ago as a way of, there's really no better way to say it, ranking counties on their ability to deal with the aftermath of disaster, and particularly on the financial management side of things. So not every county participated, but you'll see on there 48 out of 60 counties. It's an optional program with the state. And if you do participate, in theory, you get paid quicker than the other counties. And that was very important to us to participate in that. We first applied and got a score of 48 out of 60 in emergency activities as well as debris removal. Those are the only 2 areas the state's looking at this past year. They also gave us some areas we could improve upon. We've been working on them. The finance department, our personnel department, our public works department, and purchasing. We've all been working on an emergency management, working together to kind of fill in some of the gaps that the state would like us to improve upon to move higher. Again, the score is out of 60 maximum. I looked this afternoon because we submitted a bunch of documents under what they call an abatement plan, a way to improve your score. And we were at 56 out of 60 before I walked across the street here. So, and that's since the last 2 weeks where we've been submitting documents. One of those documents is actually on your agenda. I believe it's 7F. That's the financial management plan. So those changes are because of this process. What that means is, and why that 60 is important, or getting as close to that as possible for us is important. When FEMA obligates a disaster, saying you've spent money on debris, let's use that as an example. FEMA will say, yes, we approve $10 million for debris. And then we have to go incur the rest of the costs for that. We have to expend those. We have to spend those costs, and then we submit documentation, tons of documentation. Our finance team spends a lot of time on this, tons of documentation to the state, who then goes through and reviews that documentation and then sends it to FEMA. And if we're lucky, we see it in a year, maybe longer sometimes. So the state says, hey, if you all do participate in this voluntary program, we will give you up to 60%, depending on your score, of that money the minute FEMA obligates those funds for projects larger than $1 million. So we are super excited. As we sit today, 48 on the screen, 56 as I saw before, we would get 56%, I like to call it upfront, versus having to wait that whole year or even longer. So that's super exciting. I'm shocked that more counties aren't participating, but that's a local choice for that community. It is a significant amount of work for the different staff throughout the county government that have been involved in getting us ready and getting our score up there. So we are super excited about that. And as you see on the screen there, our personnel policy was a part of that. The purchasing policy, I believe, is coming to you all in a meeting or two. Some updates that because of this as well. And then the financial management policy you do have today. Just a little bit more about our department. Some other things we've been working on. So as you all know, it was previously brought to you all. We had the Ian and Nicole extra special money we got that covered removal of seawall debris. That project's already done about a month ago up by Varn Park, and is going to be funding the Bull Creek rebuild over there as well. That project, as well as Cattleman's Hall, I put hopefully on there. We have to make it past veto time, and those funds are on there. There was a lot of EM time as well as some other counties, departments times like General Services and Public Works to kind of push these projects, get them to a point where we could get appropriate figures for them and make sure that the state knew what our needs were. On top of that, we have some federally funded projects, a whole lot of mitigation projects, particularly in land management in a lot of our municipalities. But the one that means the most to me personally is on your agenda. You actually have an approval for a piggyback of a contract for off of Pinellas County for a roofing contract. That is to replace the roof on the Emergency Operations Center. It's the first time it's being replaced since the EOC was built. We've had some damage to it over the years from storms. So it's to harden that to make sure we continue to maintain the full 180 mile an hour wind resistance of that facility. The feds are covering 90% of the cost of that project for us. So what you see is the full amount on your agenda item, but the federal government's going to cover 90% of that for us. So super excited about that for obvious reasons. This year we have record volunteerism involved in the Emergency Operations Center. We have 20, as we speak right now, we have 26 active volunteers providing at least 4 hours a week of service back to our community within our Emergency Operations Center. Last year, over 4,000 hours, and using the current volunteer rate, that's just shy of that $30 an hour, is over $125,000 a year of savings back to the county based on the effort they've offered to our community. So we're super proud. We could not do with what we do in emergency management without our cadre of volunteers. They mean the world to us. And then last year, with disasters and storms that occurred, as I think you all remember, we had the tornado back in October that impacted parts of Fawn Coast. And then we also sent a team for a couple of weeks up to Madison County to go help support them when Idalia made landfall. That was an interesting one because we literally closed shelters here for Idalia that morning. And by 8 o'clock that evening, we were on the ground in Madison County helping them out. So that was very, very much a very long day that day. Any questions on the department over the last year or so?
A lot of work.
It's been busy. All right, so what everyone expects to hear this time of year, obviously we're about to enter hurricane season. We can't avoid that, unfortunately, here in Florida. As always, storms can occur outside of the season. Knock on wood. Nothing is predicted to happen before the season starts so far. Even though the season starts in June, for the bulk of the storms for us in Florida, the bulk of them are between mid-August and October, which is when we typically see our bigger storms and more likely hits to the state of Florida. Last year was an extremely busy season, but as you can see on the map up there on the left, only a couple of them made it anywhere near Florida. Idalia obviously made landfall in Florida in the Big Bend, and it was potentially going to impact us here, but knock on wood, it did not. So a very, very busy year, but only one storm really made a direct impact on our state. But if you lived in the Big Bend region, that was a Category 4 right before landfall, probably a 3 at landfall. That's a pretty solid storm for that part of the state. And then the big thing we're very much worried about this year as we look at this year is sea surface temperatures. The other map we have on the screen, red is not good on that screen. Red is very, very bad. That is warm water, above average sea surface temperatures. That's the number one thing that fuels hurricanes are the ocean temperatures. It's very good if you're me, who's a wimp and wants to go in the ocean when it's warm. It's not good for hurricane formation. So that's definitely a concern for us this year. You'll see on the next slide, they're forecasting an extremely active hurricane season because of that. We're going from an El Nino, which is warm water in the Pacific, to a La Nina, which is cool water in the Pacific. And what that means is When the water is cooler in the Pacific, we don't get as much wind shear coming across, which means it doesn't cut off the tops of the hurricane. So last year, with the warmer water, when the Pacific's warmer, it creates upper level wind shear, which helps trim down, for lack of a better term, trim down the hurricanes. We're not going to have that this year. So that's another thing. That's two things on the wrong side of the equation here for a bad hurricane season, unfortunately. But on the good side of things, potentially, and these are all just potentially because it could change by the moment, there is more Saharan dust coming off of Africa than normal. That does have the effect of dampening down hurricanes. Is there enough to offset the warm water and the El Nino to La Nina conversion? Who knows? Probably not, unfortunately. And then there are some volcanoes very active in Central America and Mexico. If they do erupt, they could also have the impact of dampening down the hurricanes as well. So things we're watching. There's all the names for the year. None of you are on it, so that is good. So here's the forecast. So the National Hurricane Center will not release their forecast until later this week. So we don't have it on there because we don't know what they're saying yet. But it's probably going to be pretty close to what CSU, Colorado State University, says. They are the first meteorology group that announces something each year. So last month they announced that there would be 23 named storms, where an average year is 14. That's a pretty significant jump there. Remember, we had 19 last year, so that's worse than last year. 11 of those being hurricanes, and 5 of those being major, which is category 3 or higher. Again, it's just a forecast. It could be higher, it could be lower. Some of it's just kind of for a news bite, but it's just kind of an awareness. They're looking at those things I spoke about and the different weather patterns, and that's what they're seeing. So in a couple of days, we'll see the update for the National Hurricane Center. The Hurricane Center does ranges. So typically you'll see them be on either side. So they'll say 20 to 25 versus something as precise as 23. So that's what we'll probably see in a couple of days from them. All right, preparations. So earlier this month, we did our normal, we met with all of the county staff that are assigned to the Emergency Operations Center or have major emergency management related roles from all of the county departments over at the Emergency Operations Center. Actually, this Friday, we're doing a more broader meeting to our broader group of partners that are involved in disasters, like our nonprofit groups and our municipalities. Later this next week, we are meeting with all of our local media partners. They come out each year. We kind of host them in the EOC for about an hour or so. We work with our communications team and just kind of answer questions, walk them through a very similar presentation, let them ask questions about what's changed, what's new, and that kind of stuff. That's been pretty successful for the last 5 or so years we've been doing that, so we're going to do that again. Emergency management's job when there's not a hurricane is to work with other departments to make sure we have backups ready in case emergencies strike, not just hurricanes. Where we're kind of taking some of that advice to ourselves too. Our disaster management system, which has been housed in the Emergency Operations Center, we're actually moving that up into the cloud. The state's enabling us to do that with picking up the cost of doing that for us. So that way, if we have damage to the EOC, we can set up somewhere else, get on the internet through satellite or whatever we do, and continue to manage the disaster through our system. They're actually funding that throughout the state for all 67 counties to allow us to do. It's quite expensive to do that, so we're very appreciative that they're picking up that state. We continue to do our monthly tests of communications. We have fancy communication systems here in this community, as well as most communities in Florida, but we also continue to test the old-fashioned stuff, the amateur radio, the ham radio stuff, because when all the fancy digital stuff goes down, we'll be able to talk to Tallahassee still with that old-fashioned stuff. So we actually have some of our volunteers come in and test that stuff for us every single month to make sure that older, reliable stuff works for us. We've updated our disaster supplies, got rid of expired stuff, updated our new stuff, our normal cache of cots and water and tarps and all that good stuff, sandbags. Continue to build out additional continuity capabilities, abilities to have backups. One of the things I briefly mentioned just now was that we have satellite. We do have satellite backup now. Versus we never had that before. So we did get a grant from the Northeast Florida Regional Council about 6 months ago that allowed us to get Starlink, Elon Musk's Starlink, as a satellite backup system. So we definitely appreciate them providing some of those funds to us to be able to pick that up. And then this past year, back in October, November, we released a brand new disaster guide that we spent about a year tweaking, making it a little more contemporary, less wordy, more bullets and pictures, allow people to go find what they need much quicker. So we were spent a lot of time with that in partnership with our communications team. Our tourism team actually helped with that. Their little turtle is in the guide, and the turtle and the crab are in the guide, and as well as actually Palm Coast helped us a lot with the development of something a little bit more user-friendly. And then just the last couple things here, evacuations. Just a quick reminder for you all, as well as our general public, We generally evacuate for storm surge for water, but not for wind. There are exceptions, mobile homes, low-lying areas, but it's really about the storm surge coming in off the ocean, coming in off the intracoastal. On the west side, that same impacts Crescent Lake and Dead Lake, have those same kind of effects because Crescent Lake's such a large lake, and it's also fed by the St. Johns River, which backs up in hurricanes. So we do have those surge areas. On the screen, you see the pink area is the coastal surge or the potential hurricane evacuation zone. And we renamed that last year and called it potential. We merged all those old lettered zones, A, B, C, D, E, F, into that one pink zone because it's very confusing, particularly for folks in Palm Coast, because we have B sections and B zones. So we just made it one big area. And then because we have better technology now, we can actually drill down by neighborhood and evacuate by common name of neighborhood, which is much easier to remember for folks anyway. So we're very excited about that. And then the west side is the green side, and that's the area that may flood from Crescent Lake. Again, it may be a subset of that area. It may not be that entire area. And then the other big thing we've been reiterating too, because we hear this a lot about closing the bridge. We will not, in general, we will not be closing bridges. We will announce when it's not safe to be on the road, but we're not going to close the bridges. Now, the bridge is damaged, different story, unsafe to pass over because of damage, it's a different story. But in general, we'll never stop people from leaving the island. We will make it very clear that the roads are unsafe. If it's unsafe to be on the road, it's also unsafe to be on the bridge, obviously. So that's kind of what our messaging will be. Instead of this bridge is closed, we're sticking a barrier on it. So that's super clear so people can continue to evacuate if they feel safe to do so. But we really don't want people to do so once we say it's no longer safe to be on the roadways. Oops. And the last one there, I'm sorry, I clicked too far. But the last one on there was really sheltering. We continue our great partner with the school district and the school district and the health department with our shelters. Obviously, if we do get the project at Cattleman's, that'll give us another shelter. We would move all of our special needs out there in general. And then for the smaller storms, we would not have to disrupt school to be able to open up a shelter. So anything you all can do to help continue to champion that project with our friends in Tallahassee will definitely be much appreciated. And that's actually what those who haven't seen it, that's our new disaster guide. We've updated everything about having a kit, how to make a personal disaster plan in there, how to sign up for our alert Flagler system, and talk about our AM and FM radio partnership with WNZF. We have that little broadcast studio where we can broadcast directly to them from the Emergency Operations Center. And we're actually right now, this week, we're going to be graduating our second Community Emergency Response Team class of the year. We take the summer off because it's just too darn hot to do some of that stuff outside, but we'll have that class again free to our residents in the fall, probably late September again, as it starts to cool down a little bit. And we definitely want to encourage our residents to take that free class that we offer 3 times a year. Thank you. Any questions?
Nice. I think you did a great job answering the questions about the shelter.
Thank you.
So I think that was very thorough and answered everything about the necessity and the fact that it's being built on state lands.
It's a unique partnership with the state. Hopefully that will mean it gets past that veto list.
The satellite phone is that's a great upgrade. We've talked about whether you have 2 carriers for the cell phones, but now that you have a satellite phone.
So we have
done.
satellite phones as well as satellite internet with the Elon Musk thing. So hopefully we
really
never
good.
have to use it, but we test it to make sure it's there. It costs us a little each month, but the whole project cost us, I want to say it was $36,000. That was fully funded by the Regional Planning Council. So it was awesome.
So remind us again what real-time alerts or how to sign up for real-time alerts when this
Yes,
happens.
so Alert Flagler is our free notification system in the county. You can have up to 5 different addresses and 8 different devices on there. And you go to flaglercounty.gov/emergency, and there's a button on there that says Alert Flagler. You just click on that. And then for our residents that aren't as savvy or don't have access to the internet, just during normal business hours, you give us a call at 313-4200, and we'll do all that work for the residents. We'll take care of it. But it costs nothing to get those alerts. No one gets charged for text messages anymore. Some people don't like text messages, so you can sign up for voice alerts where the computerized voice calls you instead, and it actually sounds pretty good. It's not a weird robot sounding voice. It's not bad. And you can set it. You can even tell it not to bother you at night. If you want thunderstorm alerts during the day, but you don't want it waking you up at night, you can tell it not to bother you at night. However, if it's gonna hurt or kill you, we ignore the calls that don't bother you. And things like tornadoes, we ignore it, and I would rather alert you and protect you and you be angry at us than not alert you when something bad happens. So, but in general, for the non-emergent stuff, we won't wake people up for that.
That was like the tornado warning from, what, 10 days ago or so?
Yep.
Yeah, we got it.
Yep. And it's really good though, because you get the generic tornado alerts. It covers the whole, on your phones, like the Amber Alerts, that covers the whole county. With our system, it's specific to your address. So if you're not in the area being alerted by that, you actually won't get bothered by it. It's only the area where they think the storm is heading. So ours is more precise because we can capture your address information.
Very good. Awesome.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your team, your small but powerful team.
Yes,
You're
they
doing
are
a
great.
great
I'm
job.
super proud of them. Thank you.
All right, at this time, we'll open it up for our community outreach segment. This is a 30-minute time period allocated for public comment on any consent agenda item or topic not on the agenda. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes to address the commission. Speakers should approach the podium, identify themselves, and direct your comments to me, the chair. Thank you.
Gina Wise, Quail Hollow. On November 6th of 2023, a demand letter seeking a compromise was sent out to Flagler County Attorney Al Hadid by an attorney from the law firm Gray Robinson. Flagler Buzz stated in their editorial section that the commissioners heard a prompt presentation with Roy Ziegler, the airport director, and that he said he had asked for new noise studies, but have been once again turned down. We would like to know on what basis it was turned down and by whom. Ziegler also stated that 2 points were not feasible, which are the ceasing of touch-and-goes operations over our community by the student flight schools, and the other was to stay above 500 feet when over residential areas. Ziegler also stated that the two were not feasible because the FAA don't have the authority to decide what kind of flights are allowed at the airport or not. The FAA is a regulatory agency, and such sets minimum standards regarding aviation generally. It is not responsible for the enforcement of such standards. That responsibility lies with the commissioners. The acceptance of federal grants with the proviso that there will be no discriminatory practices as to an individual or class of individual. But such proviso does not preclude all of you, the county commissioners, from imposing rules and regulations to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of your constituency. You all took an oath of office to ensure that responsibility is met. It is well recognized throughout the aviation community that touch-and-go operations are complicated and somewhat dangerous maneuvers for experienced pilots, let alone flight school students, exacerbated by the fact that such maneuvers take place over densely populated residential areas. The FAA has ruled that flights and/or maneuvers conducted over populated areas must be at an altitude of greater than 500 feet except when landing and taking off. The courts have ruled, including the United States Supreme Court and the Florida Supreme Court, that in such case, when a flyover of one's property is less than 500 feet and in excess of 65 decibels, this constitutes a taking of such property without due process in violation of the 5th and 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution and the loss of property owners' rights to the use and enjoyment of their property and must be compensated for such a loss. To avoid this penalty, the offending entity must obtain, here's the word again, folks, abrogation easements from each property owner affected. We have photographic evidence that we can produce that will show pilots practicing stalls and other maneuvers over residential neighborhoods at altitudes of 300 feet and less. This is a clear and blatant violation of FAA regulations. These planes and other identifying information has been provided to all of the commissioners, and yet no action has been taken.
Thank you. Next speaker.
My name is Anna Jones. I live in the Z section. We spent over $500,000 last year to move here and enjoy clean air, clean water, and clean government. I'm here to complain about the flight schools flying over our homes. They are loud, obnoxious, trespassing, and invading our privacy. I have plenty of data I have petition signatures, but I know all of you already have the data. I'd like to show you what we have to put up with. Can you have a conversation? Can children do their homework? Can you work from home? Can you concentrate on a project? Can you watch TV? This is all day, every day, late at night. Do you think you can go to bed early? Do you think you can sleep in late? Do you think you can take a nap? They are loud, obnoxious, trespassing, invading our privacy. Again, we spend a lot of money to live here, to live in peace and quiet. This is complete torture. Oh, I have another minute. It can be up to 80 decibels. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Bruce Jones. I live also in the Z section, and I can attest that that noise happens very frequently. In some cases, it happens every 3 to 5 minutes during the day. We moved here from Nevada in 2023. We bought a new home in the Z section. We were aware that there was a small airport, but there were no, we're used to small airports with very few flights. There was nothing to indicate that this was going to sort of happen. And in fact, if you go on Zillow and the real estate websites, you'll see that it's listed as a low overall noise level. And D.H. Horton, who is the home builder, didn't say anything about the planes. This problem has gotten systematically worse over the last 6 months, again, to the point where you're literally every 3 to 5 minutes have a plane of that noise going over your head. Several times we've been rocked out of bed at 7 o'clock in the morning to have to get up and not go back to sleep, and they often go as late as 11 o'clock at night with the same noise level. The airport has got voluntary noise abatement rules, which I guess is the only thing you can require under FAA rules. But a large number of the planes are not abiding by any of those rules. They completely ignore it. I have submitted a document to you with data showing you over a period of about 2.5 months what it's like. And you'll see the pattern over the neighborhoods. They're supposed to be going over forest areas. They're going right over the streets and paralleling them at a very low elevation. They're completely ignoring that sort of rule. They're not cutting back engines. We do know, though, from the data that you'll see in there that there are some pilots out of the same schools that actually abide by the rules who go out further out and cut their engines. So we know it can be done. It's not a matter of it's a safety issue because we know we've heard it and we know they can do that. So what you'll have here is information that's from the ADSB exchange, which tracks transponders, and also from a noise meter that I had in the backyard. We just are hoping that some conclusion can come to this. We've contacted people. We've tried the FAA. We even sent Marco Rubio a letter that something could be resolved, either to adopt newer, better regulations and to get forward on this so that we don't have this particular problem. The problem is the FAA never responds, and they kind of just throw it back at the county, and the county then says, well, it's up to the FAA. So we'd really like to do that. And it's also important because the city of Palm Coast has an Envision 2050 strategic plan. And in that part of that, the neighborhood going up near us is a place called Belterre Estates. And there are going to be 275 townhomes in there that are going to be subjected to the same problem. So I suggested this is an important time to get on top of all this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Darlene Shelley. We moved to Palm Coast in 2012, and for years, excessive airport noise from the small rural public use Flagler Airport was not a concern for us. All this changed in 2018 when the runway was extended to 5,500 feet and multiple flight schools from Daytona were allowed in to execute thousands of touch and goes, maneuvers over our homes, schools, hospitals, and playgrounds. At the stated 190,000 takeoffs and landings per year, that is over 520 daily loud and disturbing planes circling overhead. These for-profit flight schools have ignored voluntary fly-friendly guidelines and have been flying too low over homes late at night, early in the morning, and on weekends and holidays. These training airplanes are so loud that they wake us up from a sound sleep through our concrete walls. The excessive noise from training planes has created a nuisance and is a threat to the safety, health, and welfare of the citizens of Flagler County and Palm Coast. On October 18th, 2023, the EPA announced, quote, "The science is clear. Exposure to lead can cause irreversible and lifelong health effects in children. Aircraft that use leaded fuel are the dominant source of lead emissions in our air," end quote. On Thursday, May 2nd, 2024, I used the FlightAware app and tracked training flight activity for that day. The flight started at 6:32 a.m. and continued until 10:17 p.m. There were at least 47 flights that flew at least 287 low and buzzing circles over our homes. On Mother's Day, Sunday, May 12, 2024, starting at 7:30 a.m. until 10:21 p.m., at least 24 flights made at least 104 circles over our homes. In March and April, I compiled 39 examples of training planes lower than the 500 feet requirement, some only 69 feet above our homes. The FAA does not discuss touch and goes in its standards or handbook, and many pilots consider them dangerous and complicated maneuvers that should not be utilized with student pilots. The Flagler County Airport Rules and Regulations state under 3.2 Airport Operational Restrictions that, quote, "Unless contrary to FARs, the FCBCC has the power to restrict the use of the airport with respect to the following types of operations. 1, touch and goes, and 2, training flights. We hereby request an agenda item be added to discuss the elimination of touch and go operations and restrictions on training flights at Flagler Executive Airport." Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Celia Puglisi, and I am affected, even though a mile away from this airport, by the same nuisance flying rounds and rounds over us. And also, the thing that none of you consider, we are being contaminated by lead. The EPA and the US researchers estimate that 500,000 pounds of lead get emitted in the lower atmosphere and end up in the soil and water that we drink, thanks to the piston engine aircraft. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, 600 elementary schools are located within 500 meters of airports that use piston engine aircraft, which is here. One thing is to have the airport. I never had a problem until past the mid-2000s when this started being approved here. I was in that meeting. Mr. Darby was the chair. And we do have a school also. Even low lead blood levels could potentially harm children who are particularly vulnerable to lead pollution as their brains are still developing. In fact, lead is famous as a neurotoxin among children who are under 6 years of age. We all need to be considering that. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, lead exposure during childhood can result in stunted growth, developmental delays, learning disabilities, behavioral problems, and hearing or speech impairments in children. The symptoms of lead poisoning include joint pain, headaches, lethargy or fatigue, stomach pain, constipation, and irritability. In the paper, the researchers further highlighted that the National Academies of Science and Engineering and Medicine had released a statement that said, because lead does not appear to exhibit a minimal, I'm sorry, I'm reading here, a minimal concentration in blood below which there are no health effects, there is a compelling reason to reduce or eliminate aviation lead. This aircraft training in this training field airport that has been turning into that, we don't have a problem with the airport, it's the school that are hosting this airport. It says that aircraft that operate on leaded aviation gasoline are typically small piston engine aircraft that carry 2 to 10 passengers. These aircraft are approximately 45 to 47 years old on average, depending on the type of aircraft. Jet aircraft does not use for commercial transport, just the leaded gas. They only use the jet fuel. So this is not a problem. So the airport is not a problem for us. The schools are. These people have not alive around the airport. I am in better shape, but I have letters that I sent to this consul and to the FAA since 2008, including the former John Micah FDOT chair. So we've been asking you all this time, please do something about it.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Jane Gentile, the first thing, Leanne, my prayers are with you and your husband. I live a distance from the airport, but in 2018, my husband and I met with Roy Seeger. My husband has worked in aviation since he was 16 years old. He's going to be 60 years old. He now works in Kennedy Space Center on the Artemis project. In 2018, and Celia is completely correct, jets do not use the leaded fuel that these aircraft use. He asked Roy Seeger 4 years ago, 6 years ago, 2018, why aren't you renting out your spaces for FBOs? I've mentioned this to you before. Fixed-based operators like Les Abend, who was kicked out. Corporate jets come in, they rent the hangars, they do their repairs, they fly in, and they fly out, and they do not pollute the atmosphere. These are very well-paying corporate companies. They will add to the ambience of Flagler County. And if you read a newspaper article that Celia sent me, people are leaving Flagler County. This is not what we need. Roy Seeger, the flight schools, who are these people? Where do they come from? Where are they staying? If we need to get rid of the flight schools completely. Your job is to protect the residents of the community, their health, welfare, and safety. When they expanded runway 1129, I remember that because it's my birthday, 1129, I said, wow, we can have international flights here. Well, why don't we do that? Why don't we have a weekly flight from Roatan in the Caribbean? That would be a lot better. These flight schools must go. You owe it to these people. 5 years ago, Craig, more than that, Craig Coffey didn't even want to put a light on the tower. My husband and I went before the planning board because the tower was 99 feet instead of 100 feet. We don't have radar. When one person is killed or poisoned, The county, you are going to be sued. When you are sued, it comes out of our pockets. Thank God I don't live on top of this, but I live in Flagler County. We all live in Flagler County, and we have to take care of these people and stop these flight schools now and get in the fixed-based operators, and I'll help any way I can advertise. We've got good hangars, we've got a good runway. Get rid of the flight schools, and you've got to get rid of Royce Seeger.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Louis Granda. I live on County Road 35. I have a signed petition by everyone that lives on that road. We have a dirt road in front of our house, and it's causing a lot of problems, dust clouds, people speeding down the road, and you can't open your windows. I have solar panels in my house that are not producing any energy because they're covered in dust. So we all got together, everyone that lives from 100 to 302, I believe, and I have a petition here to see if, I've also been in touch with the engineering department and also Roads and Bridges, discussing it. It was a good idea to come here before you guys and present this to you in the hopes that we can expedite it and get this done as quickly as possible. I moved on October 31st to my home. I love it there. I want to stay there. And in the hopes that we can do something and get this done, we're all aboard. If there's anything that we can do as homeowners, we're more than willing to do so. If I can present this to you, so that you all.
Hand it to the clerk, right there. If it's just one copy, she's got to enter it. Okay, she'll send them to us.
Any help with it would be greatly appreciated. I know that you're a representative for that area.
What road did you live on again?
County Road 35.
Okay.
Sorry. We currently drag that road. Is that right, Mike? We do? Okay.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure it wasn't.
Yeah, they do go out there with the grader. I have a long list since October of repairs to the vehicles. It's a dirt road, and everyone has the same concern and the same complaints. They do a great job grading it. I'll give them that. I always call, and I always get someone, and they're very active, but we really need to get it paved. The dust is unbearable.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please. All right, seeing no other speakers, we'll go ahead and close public outreach. We'll bring it back to the board. Is there comments on consent items? I did get a comment from, well, I'll go ahead and wait till this part. Anybody have any comments on any of the
No.
consent?
I had just a couple of comments. I like the fact that in addition to all the other involvement we have with the George Washington Carver Center, we're going to redo the basketball court there, new surface, and that is needed. And I think that's a good sign of our continuing support for that facility now with the new ILA. And the other one was, I didn't want to make too much of it. I have the answer, but I just enjoyed the item 7L, where we're moving 2 of our fire engines to Flagler Beach. We've used them up, and now Flagler Beach is going to be able to use them, and they're paying us $20,000 apiece for the 2 engines. I have a good explanation of why we're doing that, so unless somebody else needs that, it's interesting. I just thought that was an interesting item. That's all. That's it.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien? Okay. So we'll go to, if there's any items to be pulled, and I know Commissioner, I just elected you. Mr. Salinas wanted to pull 7H for further discussion. He wanted to go into detail on on that broadband item. Was there anything else anybody wanted to pull?
No, sir.
All right, seeing none, we'll just go ahead and move
Mr. Chairman,
7H out.
I move we approve the consent agenda with the exception of 7H.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hanson, seconded by Commissioner Sullivan. That's for consent minus 7H. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. We'll go ahead and go to item 7H. This is consideration of agreement and partnership with CCO Holdings LLC, a subsidiary of Charter Communications for broadband services within unincorporated Flagler County. Mr. Salinas.
Good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners. Just wanted to take this opportunity to provide an update on the broadband project. It's been going on for a couple of years, few years. So wanted to start with a background on the project. So this started with the RDOF, a grant from the federal government. Flagler County, through Charter, was assigned $1.2 million to expand broadband to the underserved areas. Staff and Charter completed a map analysis and also a feasibility study to see how we can move this project forward. We also met with the community members. That time, we had multiple meetings with Katie Biancaselli and her team, and we actually came up with a plan to start moving this project forward. Then we presented, the board actually approved $1 million out of the ARPA funds to go ahead and help fund this project for the underserved areas. Mostly all the areas that we cover were on the west side of the county. Then also, and during this meeting, the board authorized staff to start negotiating a contract with Charter. And this was our part of our private-public partnership that we enter into to provide services. The project cost during that time was estimated at $7.4 million to provide broadband to the underserved areas. I presented this slide back in November 15 of 2021, where we were planning to have 3 different phases for this project. Phase 1, which was part of the RDOF funding, and also $780,000 from the ARPA fund that the board approved, and then the rest was coming from Charter Communication, was going to be addressing about 823 passings or homes that we were going to be providing broadband during that time. Then we had phase 2 and 3, which the board would be assigning the remaining $219,000. But then we still had a funding gap of, I think it was $1.8 million to complete those 2 phases. So what happened was we actually moved forward with phase 1. I call it now phase 1 plus, because the project was able to cover not only 823, we are actually able to cover 900 passings. And for that portion of the project that included 900 passings, this part is complete. It includes the 900 locations. And some of the locations that were identified during the feasibility analysis were not actually were activated because they were just empty lots. But there were 900 passings that were actually connected. The county provided the $780,000 that the board approved. We had the $1.2 million from ARPA. We had a state grant that came in that allowed us to expand to the $900,000 of $751,000. And then Charter contributed a little bit over $3 million for this phase of the project. This is what the locations look like. There's a lot of dots, one on top of each other, but you can see it's mostly the west side all the way down to Lake Distant. Now they have fiber down across, the 2 locations of the lake that actually have homes on it. So the last phase is what the agreement that we have on the consent agenda, which is to allocate the $219,000 remaining from the ARPA fund to to actually aggregate it with the state grant that came in for $527,000, and the remainder will come from Charter, which is approximately $1.7 million to complete the build out of all the locations that we had planned for. So the next step is just to consider the broadband service agreement with Charter to complete this last build-up. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to provide an update. Thank the board for having the vision to actually expand broadband to these unserved areas, which they are very happy with what they're getting. And in terms of now having broadband in locations that without this funding and your support, the majority of these folks would not have broadband today. Charter Communications for being a great partner, working with us on helping deploy this technology to these folks. Flagler County community, Katie, and some of the folks that live out on the west side that work very hard with us to get some of this funding and support for this. And also Heidi and our staff to support, be able to support this project for the community. Any questions on this?
Any questions, Commissioner Sullivan?
Yeah, it's because I'm not my expertise area, but those 900 possibilities, how are we doing as far as the people actually using the system now that they have access to it? Or is there a number, is there a way we track that?
They're tracking the people that are actually connected. There's 900 connections right now because there's a piece that goes from where the street is to their location. Some of these folks live a little bit far from the street. So all those got placed into their homes. They just need to call to get it activated.
Oh, okay. Good. So that's not a problem.
Everybody that has a home on those addresses can just call and they'll get it activated.
If I read the backup correctly, that this funds 2 and 3.
Yes,
Phase 2
the
and
219 funds the last piece, which is the 138 missing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And we'll be done.
Good.
Just personal observation. I was down, when we have issue with 40 grade, and I was down in that whole area. And I mean, it's run down some of those roads there. There's hardly any homes on it, but I mean, we're getting down to every last nook and cranny in the county, which is just, I think we're far ahead of a lot of the other rural counties. So it's great.
It's a huge undertaking, so I recall from 3 years ago when it was first started, and I know it was a personal goal of yours to make sure that this got seen through to completion. So thank you for your dedication and push to get this done.
Yeah. You provided the funding and we moved it forward. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve 7H.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hanson, seconded by Commissioner Sullivan. At this time, I'll open that up for public comment. Is there anybody who wishes to speak on this item? Seeing nobody approach, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board. All those in favor of the motion signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. We'll move to general business. Item 8A, amendment to the plat addendum and subdivision plat for Airport Road / Hunters Ridge Boulevard extension to add signage to the list of permitted uses within the roundabout, which is track 10. Mr. Mengel, welcome this evening.
Yes, sir. Adam Mangle, Growth Management Director. On your display, you've got the map showing where these two signs are going to be located. Within track 10, within the Airport Road Hunters Ridge Boulevard extension plat. And so you've got generally the layout of the plat itself is what you see outlined in yellow there. And so that was the limits of the plat. And then the track 10 is just limited to the roundabout itself. What you're doing with this is you're considering adding signage to the list of the permitted uses within the tract. Tract was limited at the time of the adoption of the acceptance of the plat to wall and landscape purposes, and signage was not mentioned. What they're doing, if this is approved, is they'll be adding the letters that you see at the top there, and so that's the representation of it. And it'll be added to the top of that wall on both sides, so that this one's the west location, the east location is very similar. And you'll see that this is all part of that D.R. Horton's rebranding of their portion of Hunters Ridge. We waited a little bit on this to get the consent of the landowner. They have provided their written consent for this amendment. And so with this, again, you are considering a resolution to add signage to the permitted uses and dedications within track 10. That'll close. Wait any questions or comments. Thank you.
right, thank you.
Is there a visibility or a issue with the sign? Is it
No.
going to block cars' visibility?
No, it's you can see there, it's open letters. It will be illuminated internally with LED lights. If anything, it may actually probably help us with some of what we've had happen so far. We've had, I think now 3 accidents that I'm aware of where somebody's continued to run through the roundabout, not seeing the low wall. So if anything, my thought is this will add more visibility to what right now is being ignored by quite a few folks. But it should not affect then the traveling public because the size of the roundabout makes it where you have to go around to get around to get to the next side to be able to travel safely through the roundabout.
Comments?
There's no problem with City of Ormond Beach on this or anything like that.
It's in our jurisdiction, so that private road.
It's away from.
Commissioner Pennington?
I don't know. It's hard on a concept to know whether or not that's really going to, be a distraction or.
I asked 2 questions for Adam, which were if it met the DOT design guidelines, and that I wasn't a fan of it, of this lighting, which you will see as you approach the roundabout, and the potential distraction or blocking of vehicles. It's a large roundabout. It's not the traffic circles that we have in town.
No.
Do we have anybody here to speak on this?
I don't believe so. I did forward your comment to them, but it's pretty late in the process. So that quick answer for you, there is no DOT specification for this. And in fact,
Only because it's not on a state roadway?
Well, ordinarily, it'd be, I would make it akin to the 2 uses that are permitted there already, the wall and the landscaping. There actually are no DOT specifications for those either. You want to keep things generally out of roads so that the only thing you do have that's our guidance is the MUTCD, the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and those are signs, traffic signs, identification signs, information signs. Those basically are designed to break away. And so that if somebody hits them at a speed, then they collapse. I did advise the contractor on there. He's been anxious to pull the permit. I said there is a good likelihood somebody's going to cruise right through there and take out your signs. And so he's aware of it. It could be a good business opportunity because he may be replacing these fairly often. Again, there's 3 crashes that I know of. The last one took out about 80 feet of the wall.
I mean, there's appropriate lighting for roadways. I don't know that this is the appropriate lighting to light the traffic circle.
No, that's not the intent here with that. Internally illuminated signage would not illuminate the traffic circle.
No, but you made mention of it as a side benefit, which I don't know that it is. But
I don't know what the cause is now other than the speed. I think that's what's happening right now. And so that I don't know if anything that's lit up is going to help it, because I think what's happening right now is it's a racetrack there.
So it's 38 feet wide and 5 feet high.
Yeah, 37, and then the sign itself is 20. The wall is 3, I think it's 3 feet, and then the wall itself is 25 inches, I think is what it shows. 37 feet 9 inches on the width, and then 25 inches high, 42 inches on the center logo. It is open. You'll see how the lettering is there. You can see through it, and they are internally illuminated. Again, if the board chooses not to accept the resolution, not to adopt it, that is certainly your prerogative. So the plat was what it was. The plat was approved for landscaping and wall, and so that's how it was approved.
Well, if it gets declined, I would suggest he come back with a non-lighted one, and then we'll see where that goes. But I don't think I can support a lighted one without anybody here to defend it or to provide some additional information on how many lumens it's broadcasting. There's too many questions for me. If there's no motion, then we can move it.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I make a motion to deny item 8A, amendment to the plat addendum for Airport Road and Hunters Ridge to add the signage and list of permitted uses.
I have a motion by Commissioner Pennington. Is there a second? I can second, correct?
You can second.
Yeah, I'll second for further discussion. So we have a motion and a second. Anybody have any further questions for Adam? If not, we'll call the question. Did you say?
I'm just trying to understand the scale. And well, honestly, I mean, it's difficult to picture this to scale and lighting and see visually what that would look at night. And I'm just concerned that it's even more of a distraction. And I know you say you can see through it, but it looks to me like it's going to be close to 6 feet off the ground in height total with the wall. I'm thinking it's 100-watt lighting. I don't know.
This
Can
is-
you say there's accidents there now?
It's a 24-volt, 100-watt, what it says for your power supply there.
Yeah.
And it says Hanley LEDs. I don't have access to computer. PNZ 24. Looks like that's, it says, I think it says 255 required. So that's the actual specs on the LEDs.
It's going to be 1 or 2 if you go on the one on the back side of this,
There'll be two signs. So
Two
yeah,
signs.
Two
this
signs.
is the east side.
right?
And then this was the, if I can get it to move.
I understand.
I think
Commissioner
the
Sullivan?
last thing a roundabout needs is another distraction.
Commissioner Sullivan?
That's my.
I do think it's important, Hunter's Ridge, this is giving some people in a neighborhood some identity, which is a new name. And I do think that's also important for the community, the details about the lighting of the sign and all that. I think it's backlighting, so it would be more like a fluorescent light kind of look, not a spotlight kind of thing. But I don't know, it's worth probably looking into.
What if I amend to table this to time date so we can get more information regarding lighting and
I'll amend. I'll let you amend. I'll
Yeah.
remove my second.
because
so-
I mean I have questions. So did anybody else want to talk before I amend? I'd like to make a motion to amend to push this to. I'm sorry. What is our next meeting date?
Third.
June 3rd, 9 a.m., pending some additional information, Adam, that we can find out about exactly, the lighting use, the LED wattage, and some just further information here. I'd like to actually go out there and take a look at what this would measure it out.
Do you think that will be sufficient? Do you want to put it to the next evening meeting or?
I don't have an opinion on that. So
Okay.
whichever one, it's, I don't know when they can be here. So, but I think that could probably work. That would be better than a denial for them. Yes, sir.
Which one do you want, or do you think we should go with?
I'd say the third, I think, would probably be
Okay.
better. That
All right.
they waited for about 2 months on this now.
So we have a motion to table to time specific, which is June 3rd meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Commissioner Sullivan seconded.
Open it up.
All right, and if there's no more comment, I'll go ahead and call the question.
One comment I'd like to make
Go ahead.
is thank God they put a nice wide cul-de-sac here, as opposed to making it too tight.
All right, so again, the motion is to table. Commissioner Pennington with the motion, Commissioner Sullivan with the second. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
1 nay. So the motion carries 4-1. Item 8B, approve emergency administrative order 2024-01 prohibiting walking or traversing on or otherwise disturbing or damaging the dunes and dune vegetation on Flagler County beaches. This is brought to us through Attorney Al Hadid and Hamid Tabasian, our county engineer. Mr. Hadid?
Okay, there we go. That is a dune that we repaired, and you are looking at the portion of the dune that immediately adjoins the access route to the beach.
So people are using the access route, but then going up onto the dunes and having the effect of compromising the structural integrity of the dune, compromising the ability of the vegetation to take hold. And this problem was noted some time ago, and the engineering department worked a great deal on it with signage, worked with general services, Parks and Rec, I guess, land management, coming up with different signs, different ways to direct people. Now, one of the problems is that the hurricanes over this arc of time since 2016 destroyed our dune walkovers, our access ways where we did not have this kind of trampling, if you will. The handicap, the accessible ramps that we had constructed, we had them at Marineland. I know we had them at Bay Drive Park. I know we had one at Malacompra and one at Varn Park. Maybe others I may not be able to recall, but very substantial. And then, you know, the dune walkovers that have long served this community, but they were taken from us. And it's taken a long time to get the dunes back in place, much less the means to cross the dunes onto the beach. So despite the different signage, different warnings, attempts at public education in the North County, you know, I should distinguish. In Flagler Beach, you know, they have the same challenge, but they're not behind the eight ball on this. They have had a very robust public education program. They have a lot of various kinds of fencing to keep people off. As you know, just going down to A1A, you can see it. They've been very good about restricting people from using walkovers that are damaged. You know, they block them off, and those are getting repaired and they're getting put back into use. We don't see in Flagler Beach this level of human activity on top of our dunes. So at the same time that engineering and general services, et cetera, are working on these problems and trying to figure out how to address them on a parallel track, citizens were complaining. Citizens, and not all of these would be people necessarily that live at the beach, but people who care about the beach, would report back that they would see somebody there, they'd go up and try to explain it to them, and their views were disregarded. People were complaining, gee, there's no patrolling up here. People can think they can do anything they want. In fact, I'm going to say within the last 3 weeks, maybe even shorter time than that, I had the opportunity to witness somebody holding a wedding service on top of the dunes with a lot of people. And another one that almost set up, but actually it was my next door neighbor who went down and talked to those people and said, look, you can't do that. They came with a big flatbed loaded up with a lot of stuff, and they chose not to go up there. We had a recent launch. We have a number of launches. A number of people gathered on top of the dunes on one of the launches. And aside from being on top of the dunes and occupying it, they didn't remove their trash. So I haven't seen this level. I live at the beach. I haven't seen this level of disrespect or disregard. I mean, I don't know if it's people trying to do something evil. I don't think it's that. It's just not appreciating what's at stake. So that problem all came to a head, and I'm going to ask Commissioner Hanson, I think it was a week ago, exactly a week ago, there was a community forum held at the Hammock Community Center. You were there, the sheriff was there, Commander Emery was there, and they were there to address a multitude of issues.
the trampling on the dunes was a major issue that was raised, and people complaining that there isn't any enforcement. The same things that I've been repeating. So they all told their little stories, and the product of which Mr. Hanson and the sheriff and Commander Emery and myself, they talked afterwards, and I explained that we could prepare an emergency order to prohibit this activity. And actually, I had been discussing it a little bit with engineering already. So the idea had kind of formed, okay, like what's the next step? So out of that grew this item whereby we want to use the emergency order as we have in the past. It's stronger than an ordinance. It's not like an ordinance violation. An ordinance violation, the code enforcement officer has to go out and write a ticket, and then it gets processed through the court. This is different. This is a serious transgression for somebody to violate an emergency order. So we took the state authority that is given to us, we've drafted it up. There were lots of meetings, by the way, about how we would draft this. We had input from the sheriff, obviously input from all the departments that use their knowledge of how people use the beach and what works and what doesn't work and what we have to consider. Sea Turtle Patrol gave us a lot of input, and this is all literally within the week. So there was a very high level. I haven't seen this much interest in an instrument, in a document. It went back and forth. People were suggesting things. The county administration suggested some things to alter, and so this is what we're presenting now. What it will do is it will allow law enforcement and citizens to warn people, look, if you do this, you are committing a law violation. And these are nothing to sneer at. It's a fine of up to $500. It's confinement up to 60 days. Now, our expectation, we had to do things like this. Remember when the pandemic came across, and in those emergency orders, we never actually had to write a ticket. Nobody went to jail. Nobody got fined. They would be told, and they would comply. And that's what we're expecting here. The sheriff is going to improve his patrolling with this emergency order, and I think it's going to be part of the education program so that people will allow the dunes to stabilize. Now think about this. We're getting ready to build more dunes, and we're investing a whole lot of money. I mean, I don't know how this piece of sand that you're looking at, I don't know, as far as the eye can see, I don't know how much that is. Maybe that's $1 million, right? And we're degrading it. Nick, can you advance to the next one? Okay, now here, this is the end of Malacompa Road. This is an area where people are barred. Look at the footprints. I mean, it's like a free, and I know I'm not trying to exaggerate. It's to better illustrate the point. It's like a freeway. So what we've been doing up to now, I mean, that's a pretty big, and look how big that red diamond is. Look how the size of the lettering, keep off sand dunes. And that hadn't worked. No beach access. And I know you can't see the rest of that sign, but it says, go use the designated access points. So it presents a problem, and this isn't a solution that we were eager to pursue, but it's like, we've got to ramp up. We've got to ramp up our efforts to protect these dunes because they are critical to our defense. They are critical to public safety. They are critical to restoration of natural habitat. If the dunes don't get revegetated, I mean, they're not going to last very long. You all know that. It's the vegetation that holds them in. It's the vegetation that catches more sand, traps more sand. It's the root system in the dunes that give it additional strength. It's like rebar. It's plant rebar. That's really what it is in my mind, the way I think of it. So now they're going to ramp up their public education program in Flagler Beach. I've talked to the chief, and he has come up. I mean, they're just so creative, and they're a little bit ahead of this because they've done a great job. And so, Nick, would you advance? This is going to be their part of their education system. Yes, they're gonna invoke Yoda to tell people, no, you have got to you use the dune walkovers, use the force, save the dunes, right? So in any event, it's presented to you. There were actually, because it was an evolving piece, there were some amendments, as you know, from what you originally got. The most recent was, and it's included in the document that the chair would sign, and you were furnished a copy of it. It adds a repeal of an earlier emergency order that we had in 2018 as a result of Matthew. This is a much more robust, expanded, very specific emergency order. So, unless the board has any questions.
Thank you, sir. Questions for Mr. Hadid?
No, I just think enforcement is a key part of this, and really, we're really not looking to put people in jail.
No.
But we're trying to say, the threat is there more in a more stern way with this ordinance, I guess, would be the main purpose. And I don't think Yoda should be standing there telling people not to use the.
No, he's not telling them not to use the.
He should be saying,
He's saying, don't walk down here.
he's saying, may the enforce be with you.
Yeah.
But he's standing on a walkway where we want the people to walk.
Well, I would just say that our dune system is natural infrastructure. We have plenty of protections. The dig, don't dig call, and penalties for digging up infrastructure. I see this similarly in that, if we're not protecting this first line of defense, it's never going to have an opportunity to grow and fortify the dune system. I've never heard it called rebar before, but our natural rebar.
It's equivalent, right? It's equivalent. But I neglected to mention, and I should have mentioned this. I mean, it was on my mind. It just didn't come to the fore. And that is, I don't remember exactly when it was initiated. I'm going to say 2018, maybe 2019. The Dodge the Dunes program. I know you all know that.
Right.
It was very, very successful. The business, you remember the businesses supported it. They did overt things to tell their customers, to dodge the dunes. It's a very effective program. The difference, I think, of why it hasn't worked as well here is that Flagler Beach is, to say more urbanized is not correct, but there are people there, a lot of people there. In the North County dunes, they're more like rural beaches, so there isn't that eyes on.
I think education, though, is going to be critical as well. We have to have an education campaign that goes along with this in order for it to be effective.
And we're going to put more signs up, too. We're going to put quite a few more signs.
And I'm sorry, I did not mention, I'm really being deficient today. The engineering department, in conjunction with the public engagement, I'm not sure all the department names anymore, they change them on me. The public engagement department and the engineering department are going to put together an educational video to show people. And what they want to do in the video is not just get up there and say, hey, don't walk on the dunes. They actually want to take and film the dune area to show people, no, don't walk here. This is why. This is how you access the beach. So that, full court, think of it like part of a full court press on a number of different, dimensions.
So speak to how this will be implemented past tonight. So what's the next phase?
Well, when you sign it, Ms. McDonald will make sure it's recorded, and the moment she records it, it becomes law. And the sheriff, I think there's going to be some meetings between engineering and the sheriff's office or some sort of collaboration there about how to do this. I know that the citizen observer patrols, have four-wheel drives, and they'll probably be the first group of folks out there. The sheriff's office his uniformed officers also have, the four-wheelers, and I think we're going to be seeing them on the beach and counseling people, where they should be, where they shouldn't.
The COPs currently patrol the beach in four-wheel drive vehicles. And so the plan is once this goes into effect, to get them up to speed education-wise, and so that they can go warn people to stay off the dunes.
And to explain why.
Yep.
And proper signage, that's the other component, so people can't claim they
Yeah.
didn't know.
We're going to put a new sign every 500 feet. Every 500 feet, we'll have a stay off the dune sign.
Anybody else? Anybody want to make a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve the Emergency Administrative Order 2024-01, prohibiting walking or traversing on or otherwise disturbing or damaging the dunes and dune vegetation on Flagler County beaches.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hanson, seconded by Commissioner O'Brien. Mr. Adid, did you want to say?
I'm sorry, I thought you were not going to say about public comment.
Oh, no, I'm there, getting
Yeah.
there. That's next.
Sorry. No.
I have it all written down now, so I don't miss public comment anymore. At this time, I'll open it up for public comment. If anybody wishes to approach us, the podium, state your name.
Good evening, Kim Carney, Flagler Beach. A nice representative sign, educational piece would be a cross-section of the dune to demonstrate what you're looking at up there is a primary dune. So you want to make sure people understand vegetation, primary dune, and then any walkover. So the benefit in Flagler Beach is there's 51 walkovers. So when you say use a walkover, people understand or they can physically see a walkover. So kind of draw it out for them, maybe some kind of a schematic of what the dune is. The vegetation's on top, the front is the front. Don't be here, don't stand here. And then, show them where they can hang out and show them where they can either go onto the beach or come off of the beach. The big disadvantage, of course, is that it's so spread out. It's going to be very hard to get a lot of information to a small group of people. But in Flagler Beach, we did a lot of signage, and unfortunately, that's what they see when they get to the beach, right? Bunch of signs saying go here or go there. So use the entrances, maybe the signage needs to be bigger, but you should draw it out for them. We use a lot of dune, and Matt does a lot of dune pictures, so draw it out.
It's actually in the order. Some of you noted in the order,
Right,
there
it's
is
gonna
that
be-
schematic.
That schematic is
that
there already.
shows
We got the schematic.
what Ms. Carney is addressing. We read your mind.
Any other public comment on this? Good evening.
Orlando. I live in Palm Coast.
I'm sorry, what was that again?
John Orlando.
Thank you.
I agree with everything that Mr. Moylan said. I've observed all the same things on the beach. I go to Varn Park a lot. One of the problems is the signs that you have now are useless, completely useless. They're about this big. They look pretty, nice artwork, but a tourist is not going to walk up to that sign and read it line for line. You go to the beach, you get out of the car, and you go to the water. You don't read any of those signs. If you want a warning sign, it has to be a big warning sign. Very few words, nothing that people have to read. Stay off the dunes. When I'm at the beach, I'm the one who chases people off the dunes. I'm not a cop. I'm a citizen. Now, the last time I was at Warren Park, it was a woman photographing her kids holding seagrass in their hands. 2 little kids, toddlers, and she's taking a picture of them. She's a tourist, not a resident. Your signs have to be warning signs, not pretty signs with a lot of information on them. Now, this education program you're talking about, Who's going to be educated? This video, who's going to watch it? Who's going to watch it? Do you know? What audience are you addressing?
It'll be put out through all the social media outlets. It's no different than, in fact, what is done in the city of Flagler Beach, where they do have a successful program.
I don't think Flagler Beach has a successful program because I've seen all these infractions on Flagler Beach also. Tourists come, they sit on the dunes, they walk on the dunes. It's just useless. You need big warning signs and you need enforcement. That's the other big problem. Most of the time when I'm at the beach, I don't see any cops at all. I've been here 9 months. I moved here from New York. I moved here from the Gulf Coast of Florida. I've been in Florida 25 years, but in Palm Coast 9 months. In all the time I've been here, maybe I've seen cops 2 or 3 times on their four-wheelers. If there's no threat of enforcement, people are going to do what they want. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for shooing them away. Any other public comment? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. We have a motion by Commissioner Hanson, seconded by Commissioner O'Brien. I'll go ahead and call the question. All those in favor signify with aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I think there should be a way to get that kind of information in all the Airbnbs and the rentals. You know, maybe we could work with them to try to get just a graphic picture of what the dune is and stay off the dune. I think that's an education piece that might really hit home if we could do that. So,
Well, I think I know Miss Amy is back there listening. If there's a way to get the information to our Airbnbs and
Airbnb
hotels.
folks, yeah.
I think the sign should say warning snakes. Then they won't go near it.
Barbed wire.
They're more likely to pay attention to that than the fine.
And an update as we start the implementation phase too, so we can, again, as part of that education campaign, bring it back here. All right, we'll move on. Item 8C, approve consolidation documents effective July 1, 2024 for newly established career source Brevard/Flagler/Volusia Workforce Development Area, including required designation application to state of Florida, the required interlocal agreement among the counties for operation and administration of the new workforce development area, and C, appoint 1 consortium member and 1 alternate for new entity to represent Flagler County. Mr. Deed, you on that one too?
Yes, sir. Thank you. In 2021, the governor and the legislature decided that they wanted to consolidate the various workforce development boards within the state, reducing their number for efficiency purposes, for accountability purposes. And so our area was selected to participate in a consolidation with Brevard, our neighbor to the south on the coast. So it'll be a 3-county consolidation. This has been directed. The consolidation has been a troublesome effort all throughout the state because you're essentially taking mature organizations and putting them together. And so you're going to have some structural issues. And so issues that we encountered were encountered by the other areas where consolidation was directed. And the way that we worked through them all was to have regular and extensive communication with Brevard County, Volusia County, the Career Source organization, as well as Florida Commerce. We had many meetings, lots of communication. Involved from the board was Commissioner O'Brien, because he is your current appointee on the Flagler Volusia Career Source Board, and he has held that position. I think you've held that I'm thinking 5 years. 5 years. So he has a lot of institutional knowledge. So he obviously, well, he participated because he was your appointee, but also brought a lot to the table because he had that institutional knowledge. And the state of Florida, Florida Commerce, wanted to make sure that the chairs of every county commission were involved. So therefore, Mr. Dance got brought in probably about 2 months ago or thereabouts. And the deadline to be completely consolidated, to open the doors all across the region as a new entity, new operation is July 1. And it's been a learning curve for all of the different groups in Florida. So what we've done, we were concerned, Flagler, we were concerned that we're the minority entity population-wise. This new 3-county area, we're only 3% of the population. So if it's a representation of the population in terms of the governance, we could be marginalized. So what we pressed for was that there was no reason that we shouldn't have an equal voice with the other counties, that all the counties should have an equal voice. We even went to mediation with the state mediator to resolve that, and it was decided, all 3 counties ended up agreeing that each county would have an equal voice. So that was very significant. And further protection for everybody, I think we'll have a better program for it, is that all votes of the consortium is the super entity over the Workforce Development Board and consists of elected commissioners from the counties, okay? The consortium, that's what they call it. All of their votes on the budget, program development, appointments to the Workforce Board have to be unanimous. So there isn't going to be any 2-1 votes citing, someone, I don't know how those votes would go, but everybody has to sit around and reach a consensus about how they're going to move forward. There was also one other thing that we were able to get into the interlocal agreement. Actually, I've been talking about the interlocal agreement. That's the governing document that the 3 counties are going to abide by in operating, is that if in the course of the program development or administration, we feel that our citizens are not getting adequate services, again, because we're smaller, who our appointees are, they will be able to raise that issue and will have the ability to require that issue to be addressed. In other words, a vote can stop a disproportionate impact to a county. So there's 3 votes. Each county has 1 vote. So 1 vote can stop a disproportionate impact. The interlocal, which is very unusual. I'm sure you are thinking, wow, that's very unusual. The interlocal agreement requires and directs that if that situation comes about, that 3 counties have to work together to resolve it. And I look at all these, the word I use is to avoid our marginalization, because we are we're a tiny, literally 3%, we're a tiny player, but this service is incredibly important in our community. This is how people develop employment skills. This is how people get certain aid because of their income levels, so that they can function better in society. This is where businesses come if they need a particular kind of skill. The Career Source can ramp up a training program and develop manpower for companies so that they can advance economically. So this is an incredibly important program. The size of this program And all those services I'm describing is going to be about $20 million. So this is not an insignificant program. My understanding, and I haven't been involved in CareerSource, I got thrown into this. I've done occasional things for CareerSource, but I had to learn a lot more and get thrown into it because of the consolidation. I mean, the consolidation was coming down like a train, and nobody, I don't want to say nobody, people were putting off dealing with it, and I knew we had to deal with it. So I just really pushed because I knew these were going to be difficult issues, and they were difficult issues. Imagine trying to talk to Brevard and telling them that they should give us an equal vote. But they agreed to do that. And I think that, by the way, I think one of the reasons why we were able to, I don't want to call them concessions. I don't want those counties to feel that, you know, we've won anything over them. It's not that at all. This is for the good of the whole. I think it's because we demonstrated that we had a sincere interest in the efficacy of these programs. I mean, our programs at CareerSource in Flagler County are really homegrown. We use our public school system. We use the, what is it? I'm maybe not going to get it right. The the Flagler Technical Institute. We use the Chamber of Commerce. So we're very involved in the community, CareerSource. And I think we want to continue to have it look like that. So there's going to be that program design that's going to come. And I think that they realize that it's an important program for us. Now let's talk about what they offer. Brevard has a different demographic, different economics. They have different industries. You know, they got the space age, and we might be able to benefit from that. I don't know all the ins and outs of that, but now we're all going to be connected, and maybe that will offer us some advantages. I have been to their offices, the Brevard CareerSource offices. They seem to be very well operating. I've obviously, in the course of doing this, had to meet the people at Brevard. I'm very impressed with them. They're incredibly professional. And we were able to go through, I mean, we were doing this weren't we doing this every week, practically, Mr. O'Brien, getting together literally? I mean, we required a meeting. It could be a short meeting, a Zoom meeting, but we met every single week, and I'm not sure exactly when we started. I think, I don't know, like November, December, something like that. So this has been quite a long travail, and I think we have reached a very excellent point. Now, as Chair Dance pointed out, you have 3 things you got to do tonight. You got to do them tonight. You cannot put them off. They want to get the new consortium to meet before they're legally official on July 1, because the state finally figured out, well, gee, if July 1 comes and if they haven't figured everything out, what are we going to do on July 1, July 2, July 3? So the consortium is going to start meeting either at the end of this month or very early June. That's the 3 counties. That's not the operational people of CareerSource, because think of them like the board of directors. They're going to design, not going to design, but they're going to decide what the annual budget is. They're going to decide who the grantees are going to be. We're going to provide the services. Are we going to use the same places that we used? Do we renew the leases? You know, those kinds of things. So there's a lot of operational issues between now and July 1, because when July 1 comes, you want to absolutely be ready to serve everybody that needs any service, whether it's an individual who's looking for employment, somebody who's looking for a benefit, or an employer that's looking for workers. So the first thing is the designation. You don't have any choice of that. The governor said, we're designated. You see that in the package. It's all filled out. And by the way, if you look at it, there's a section of it that identifies all the services that are provided, and it's quite lengthy. there are a lot of services provided and funded through CareerSource. So that's number one. The interlocal, which is the Constitution, if you will, that is something that you need to approve. And it is unfortunately, and I had to send you a red line. When did I send it to you? This morning? I can't remember. Last night? I think I sent it to you last night. So they're still tweaking the words. Now, there's been all the things I mentioned, the highlights, none of that has changed. There isn't any substantive change. It's finessing some language. And by the way, we have a lot of lawyers working on it. That's the problem. Too many cooks, that expression. Florida Commerce has a lawyer. Brevard has a county attorney. Volusia has a county attorney. You have a county attorney. CareerSource, Flagler Volusia has an attorney. And the Brevard CareerSource has an attorney. I didn't count all those up. So there's a lot of eyes on it.
Sir, do you need these individually motioned?
Yeah, it'd probably be better.
Okay.
So let me just add. So Brevard is the only one that hasn't completely signed off on all the edits that you received. And I checked with them today. They have it. I mean, it'll be within a day or two, because they're really under the gun, because the state is saying, get it done, get it done, get it done. The way we do this is that when you approve, okay, we're approving a document. We know what it looks like. What if there are a couple of changes that occur after? Your recommendation says it's got to be approved as to form by me. If there's anything squiggly about whatever somebody might present, I mean, you can be sure that I'm going to work through whatever that issue is, and I will certainly be in consultation with the chair, as well as, because he's the signatory, and Mr. O'Brien, because he is our appointee. All right, so that's approving the interlocal agreement. Now, the last thing is, all right, we've got to have appointees. One of the clauses I put in there, because Mr. O'Brien has incredible institutional knowledge here, and by the way, was very instrumental in that mediation to get us the results that we got. It allows for him to serve until he can continue to serve as your appointee until the election comes and he retires from office, without sacrificing a term. So in other words, whoever you name as the alternate will automatically step in and be the appointee, and then you'll get to name another alternate. Okay, so what's the benefit of the alternate? This was, by the way, something that I pressed. And I think you all know this. You have been on boards where you've been on entities where one of you has been an alternate. The appointee and the alternate, are permitted to discuss issues. You can discuss them at will. You can communicate at will. It's not like the restrictions that you have now. And the reason is only one person has the vote. That's why. Now, if the appointees say, I'm going to hypothetical, Mr. O'Brien, you decide Mr. O'Brien can serve until his term ends. And let's say for some reason he cannot attend the meeting. Well, the alternate steps in and represents you and votes. But the two of them, Mr. O'Brien is going to be out. He can talk to that alternate and say, look, this is what I think about that issue. Or may ask, what do you think about that issue? You are allowed to have those discussions. That is allowed by the Sunshine Law, because you're a different status alternate. So and by the way, and this was an issue that was discussed, in the other two counties, they do not want their second person, I don't want to say do not want, they might not like hearing me say that. They want an administrator from the county administrator's office to be the alternate. Now, I understand that because it lightens the load. But I think, this is my advice to you, and I've been sleeping and eating this now for months. I think we are much stronger if we have two commissioners, because you all have a unique trait, a magical trait. You know how to speak intergovernmental. You know how to persuade. You understand policies. You understand the impacts on the citizenry. You are really keen to those. There are no better spokesperson than you. The two of you at a meeting are going to outdo, and I don't mean this to cast any negative aspersion, are going to outdo an elected member and an administrative person. The administrative person can go. Ms. Petito, Mr. Salinas, they can go. They can choose to send the person from Human Resources or the person from Social Services. They're public meetings. We can send any administrative people we want, whenever we want. So why waste the opportunity? I say to you rhetorically, why waste the opportunity to not have another heavy hitter? I think two commissioners can be very persuasive on those issues of, well, where are we going to have the array of services? How much emphasis are we going to be? What's going to happen in Flagler? How are we going to all interrelate? I think there's a lot of strength in that. Now, that's my opinion. And I'm not going to tell you that I know everything. I don't. But that is my best opinion. And now you've heard it. You can weigh it and you can decide on it. So unless you have any questions,
All
that's
right,
it.
I'll bring it back to the board. Do you have any questions for Mr. Hadid?
No, but I was saying, your question, do we need to do three
Yes, so the
separate
first
motions?
one would be the
A.
designation application, and
Yeah.
then the second motion would be the interlocal agreement, and then the third would be appointing a consortium member and an alternate.
Well, are we ready for the motions?
I believe so. I have for no further questions. I just,
The only question I had, that Brevard still hasn't agreed.
Not to all the words. The lawyer has, they have one more person and they've had trouble getting that person to sit down and look at it. It's not a disagreement, it's they need that person to look at all of our
I just don't know if that affects any of those motions.
it doesn't, I mean, somebody's got to be last, so, I mean, it's, it really doesn't affect the
We don't have a
motions.
choice. I mean, unless you want me to bring you back for a special meeting after I don't know.
We have what we have, so if it's anything material different, you have to bring it back, but if it's.
Oh, I would.
Yeah, if
You
it's
know, in an
grammatical.
instant, I would.
Right. Yeah, so the first would be the designation application to the state of Florida.
Mr. Chairman.
So moved. Okay. Second.
There's a motion by Commissioner Hanson, seconded by Commissioner Sullivan for the required interlocal agreement among, this is the required designation application to the state of Florida. And that was a motion for approval? Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the required interlocal agreement among the counties for operation and administration of the new workforce development area.
Second.
I'm going to go back because I did not open that first one up for public comment. So let's go back and open the floor up for public comment on the designation application to the state of Florida. All right, seeing nobody approaching, we'll go ahead and call the vote on that again. This is for the motion for approval of the designation for application to the state of Florida. All those in favor signify by aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, go ahead, Mr. Hanson.
I move that we approve the required interlocal agreement among the counties for operation and administration of the new workforce development area.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hanson, seconded by Commissioner Pennington. We'll bring this to the public. Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back. Call the question. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously.
This next one is, will require, we have to decide. It's
The
going to be
alternate.
the Commissioner O'Brien and who?
I'm willing to be the alternate unless somebody else would like to be as well.
Can only be you guys. Can't be the two of us.
Yeah, I would recommend you, Mr. Chair, just because you've been attending some of the meetings and halfway up, or up to speed, I shouldn't say halfway, up to speed on the discussions and, what the organization's about and what we're doing, so.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve Commissioner O'Brien as the primary and Commissioner Dance as the secondary representative to the new entity to represent Flagler County.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hanson, seconded by Commissioner Pennington. Bring it out to the public for public comment. Anybody wish to approach? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the dais. All those in favor, I have a motion by Commissioner Hanson, seconded by Commissioner Pennington. All those in favor of the motion signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chair, can I just, one minute?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to continue to serve. It's been an important part of what I do as a commissioner, I feel, for a while. I also want to thank Mr. Hadid for his work. This is a complicated issue with the legal side of it and, juggling all the balls with the different counties involved. When I heard about this consolidation 2 years ago, my concern was, and a lot of rural commissioners, county commissioners had the same issue, as we go through consolidation, my concern was, what was it going to do to the level of services that we have in our county when we're grouped together with two larger counties? And I also had the concern of prior service on the TPO and thinking, sometimes we would go to those meetings and we didn't have a lot of voice because we're packed in a room with Volusia County municipalities and the county. So I was worried about that not having equal representation, but this consortium handles that issue for us. And so I appreciate the work that Mr. Hadid did in getting us to the point that we're at. So thanks.
Yep, thank you. I would add too that a lot of the bulldogging to make sure that Flagler County was equally and properly represented goes to Mr. Hadid. He put in, this was an incredible amount of work and effort that I'm just shocked. I guess when you get too many attorneys on the same thing from 3 different counties, it goes haywire. But thank you for making sure this went through. It was definitely, I'm not going to say a labor of love, but you definitely had our best interest to see this through. So thank you. All right, since we have moved 9A to a future meeting, we'll come back to item 10, which is our reports, and our county administrator report is first.
Thank you. I have nothing to report. Thank you.
Mr. Hadid, anything further?
I'm sure you know that we'll be working on the documents with the city of Ormond Beach to implement the resolution that was achieved by your joint meeting with the city.
Thank you. And a lot of congratulations to Mr. Moylan for the work he put into that to see that it went through smoothly.
He performed very ably.
Okay. We'll go back for community outreach. This is our second 30-minute time period for public comment. If anybody would like to approach, state your name. Seeing none, we'll close public outreach. Bring it back to the commission for our reports. Commissioner Hanson?
Just something of interest to everybody. I had a chance to sit down with Nate McLaughlin yesterday. He was in town, and he looks great, and he looks good, and it was good to see him. It's good to see him. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Pennington?
I was going to ask Ms. Petito, I think, did we skip a quarterly airport update, or is that coming up in one of our June meetings, or have we made a decision?
We'll look at the schedule and see. I wasn't aware that we missed one, but it might be coming up.
Okay.
I'll look.
Is there anything specific that we want to bring forward?
I think maybe we could address, it seemed like a lot of the concern was about lead, fuel and consumption over the houses. I think we should have the discussion.
I think too, we could update on the transparency portal and the website upgrade and I think some time to look through I know there was a lot of documents that were left, so we'll have to have some time to go through that as well. So there could be a comment on the material that was submitted. Commissioner Sullivan?
No, nothing more.
Commissioner O'Brien? All right, I just have to ask the commission for their approval. I've got 2 letters of support. At the last regional council meeting, St. Johns County had asked for support letters from the commission for the Florida Museum of Black History. So if there's no objections,
Right.
Staff is working on it and we'll.
That's the issue, to establish it in St. John's.
Yes.
Yeah, well, we should do that.
And then the second one was I was approached by the Palm Coast Historical Society for a letter of support and a grant that they're applying for. It's a federal grant it's a general services program grant, and it'll help pay for a part-time position for the Historical Society, Palm Coast Historical
That's good.
Society. Okay.
No, I would support that also.
Okay.
And SC3 will also send a letter in support of that.
Okay, great. Did anybody object to either one of those?
Nope.
No.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. I don't really think I have anything else. We've got the joint meeting on the 28th, and the next regular meeting is June 3rd at 9 a.m.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hanson, second by Commissioner O'Brien. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for being here this evening.
Thank you.